we're Family Vancouver, and welcome, Michelle. Thanks for coming.
Hello, everyone. So I will be the first of several speakers. We're going to go through each of the groups that have facilities in the flats that are potentially affected by the future potential arterial routes. So engineering will come up after the fire and rescue services. We'll also speak about heavy urban search and rescue, animal services, and our colleagues at the Vancouver School Board. Okay. So False Creek Flats area, the city is a large landowner in the False Creek Flats, as you probably already know. So marked in white are the lands that the city owns in the civic portfolio. These are part of a really massive portfolio that the city has across the city. So we're owners of about 580 facilities. Most of them will be the ones that you interact with on a daily basis, things like community centers, libraries, field houses in all the parks, fire halls across the city, all kinds of the civic facilities that are part of your day-to-day life. The ones that are in the flats are all the ones that need to be in industrial lands. They're the back of house as it's described in the plan for the flats. They're all the things that are noisy, dusty, smelly, unpleasant to be close to any residential areas. Things like barking dogs, burning towers that have to get put out once a week because of fires are learning how to do that work. The National Yard where trucks are coming and going. But all of these things are key to community resilience. They are the basis of meeting our day-to-day community needs. They keep the business continuity of our city up and running, our own services as well as all of yours, and they're essential to emergency preparedness for our city. So some of the key things too about these facilities being in industrial land, we only have 2 areas of industrial lands left in the city. There used to be more, and the industrial land area is reducing. We have a swash along the Fraser River, and then of course we have the flats. So industrial land is getting harder and harder to come by. We're fortunate that we have the land in the flats because it allows us to provide efficient services to our citizens. So the majority of the dense areas are the darker purpley blue. As it gets darker, that's higher density. So the flats allows us to serve with efficiency the central part of the city where the greatest density is. And when you look into the future, that's only going to increase. So the darker burgundy here is where the anticipated growth is in the city, and yes, there will be growth in the south and in the east, but there will be immense growth in the center of the city as well as jobs growth. So here's a visual summary of where our facilities are in relation to the different options for arterial. So as you can see, there's no intersection that causes any concern along prior. Our fire hall 1 site was the big stuff that we look at from here. Anyhow, it's over here. But neither Malkin or Prior will cause that site any concern. So the first site, the first arterial that actually intersects in a way that will be an issue with one of our facilities is Malkin. So, so this is the Animal Services Center that is immediately next to the Malkin alignment. But the majority of our facilities will be will have intersections with the proposed national routes. So this is our engineering service yards. This is our fire training center, which includes includes the HUSAR, Heavy Urban Search and Rescue. And then as well, the Vancouver School Board has their work start up here on Clark. So just to summarize, so Malcolm will intersect with animal services, but national is the one that will affect most of our facilities. And so from here I'll pass it on to my colleagues, and then I'll do some wrap-up summarization.
Thanks, Michelle. So our next speakers are Erin and Deminda. If you guys want to come on up. And maybe come by the, I'll grab one of these. So Erin, thank you. We met these folks on the tour. Erin Haas manages the street operations branch of the City of Vancouver, overseeing construction and maintenance of roads and sidewalks. She's worked for the City of Vancouver for 12 years in various roles in engineering and community services, and she specialized in the field of occupational health and safety before she got into operations. And Deminda is a professional engineer, project management professional, certified energy manager, and sustainability professional. Deminda has extensive experience in design and maintenance and enjoys working to serve the public. Welcome, you guys. Thank you.
Sorry for that. Yeah, I think so. So Erin and myself will be briefly explaining the services provided by the national this area. Yeah. So as you could see from the slide, basically. This facility is was relocated from the Olympic Village area in 2004, and this is one of two service yards in city of Vancouver. The other one is on the south side of Vancouver. It is called Manitoba Yards. This is strategically located close to the downtown Vancouver area, so that we can provide services efficiently and in a fast manner. There are roughly around 500 staff members working in the national yards, and you can see close to 470, 500 vehicles in and out from the national yards. And there are around like 6 service areas that we are covering. Basically, as you could see from here, one of equipment services, street operations, electrical services, and also traffic operations, parking operations, and sanitation operations. I will briefly explain a bit of each services. Equipment services. In this facility, we provide all the vehicle maintenance services for emergency and engineering vehicles, and also there's a gas station and a wash bay for vehicles. As you are aware, streets operations basically do the street operations do the construction and maintenance of the streets and sidewalks. And also we respond to storm situations and provide services when it comes to snowing and salting operations. So traffic operations, again, we install and maintain signs in the city and also do road paintings. Electrical operations, again, we have lots of infrastructure on the streets right of way. So that includes street lighting, traffic signals. So we do install, maintain those services. And also parking operations. We have on-street parking equipments. So we collect coins and also maintain those equipments on the street right of way. Again, a sanitation operation. litter can, garbage pickup. Those are the services. So, especially I am going to explain here a little bit more about electrical and traffic operations. And we deliver roughly $25 million worth of capital and maintenance services every year. And also every year roughly we do around 1,400 poles replacements, 30 service panels, kiosks, and we are replacing underground infrastructure like 3 kilometers per year, 200 pole bases. And also we do lots of light bulb changes, like 8,000 light bulbs, 8,000 signs are replaced every year. And also we manufacture around 100,000 new signs, decals every year. And also roughly 1,400 kilometers lane lines, painting is done, 36 kilometers of crosswalks, and 12 kilometers of stop bars every year. So I will hand over the presentation, rest of the part, to Erin. Please come forward.
All right, thanks, Deminda. Oh, you guys can definitely hear me on this one. And I'm gonna grab that. Okay, so Deminda has mentioned that between the two of us, we have the two biggest branches that work out of National Yard. So National has somewhere around 700 employees working out of it. Together we have about 500 of those. That's why we're the two speaking today. A little bit about street operations. We do a lot of work that is connected to call-ins from citizens. So we respond to 30,000, this is 2018 numbers, we responded to 30,000 service requests. We did 60,000 pothole repairs. This picture on the right is a picture of pothole repair. And 25,000 sidewalk trips. So anything that is greater than an inch is considered a sidewalk trip. And our crews will go out and repair it, putting in an asphalt fillage, maybe some grinding as well. And 5,000 utility cuts. So this picture on the left, and I'll just get out of the way so people can see from all sides. This picture on the left is the example of a utility cut. So a utility provider such as TELUS, Hydro, Fortis, when they need to access their underground infrastructure, they'll cut in the road to do so. And so our crews then mobilize, and we will do a permanent repair to the road so that it maintains its integrity. So just a point I wanted to make about these slides is that you can see that they're very small jobs. And so the access to our yard, because of mobilizing and demobilizing our equipment, our materials, our staff, is a big part of the cost. And so quick access to the yard is quite important for us for these small jobs that we do. And so we also do some bigger work, but in the relative scheme of things, it's still relatively small. And so our construction work, here's just a few examples from some photos. This is our paving operation. We're doing a utility trench in this example. Sidewalk restoration, sidewalk renewal or repair, as well as underground conduit, which is this one on the right here. So we do about $50 million in work a year, and generally relatively small jobs, and just a lot of traffic in and out of National. Another part for street operations is that we act as the engineering lead for emergencies and for weather events. So the past couple of weeks have been very intense for us. Well, we've been dealing with the ice and the snow. We've been operating 24/7, probably for 2 straight weeks now. And so it's really key that we have quick access to our very dense areas of the city. Another aspect that we have is our Departmental Operations Center, our DOC. And so this bottom picture here is our dock, or our DOC. And so it is a place for us to communicate, plan, coordinate in the event of a weather response or an emergency. So really having this dock close to our employees, close to our lockups, our equipment, our materials, our fleet. It's very important for us in terms of just ensuring like a really effective operation and really good response in the event of incidents or weather. There was something else I wanted to say on that. If it comes to me, I'll mention it later. I also want to talk a little bit about sanitation. So sanitation is another work group that functions out of National. This photo at the top here, these two, I'm just going to point them out. These two, I might even have a pointer on this. Don't worry about it. This one up here, this purple circle is a transfer station. And this purple circle down here is the National Yards compactor. And so these pink dots everywhere are where the litter bins are located throughout the city. So the litter bins are just the ones that you see when you're walking down the street and you toss your trash into them. So they're very centrally located to the center of downtown area of Vancouver, like definitely more focused in the north. And for that reason, Sanitation Litter Bin Program operates out of National. These are small trucks. They're intended to access small areas of the city. You might even see them going down the seawall, for example. And so they fill up quickly, and they need a fast, quick place to get rid of their materials so that they can go back out and keep working. This is a photo here. It's a bit fuzzy, but it's a photo of one of the litter pickup trucks, and it's just a very small pickup truck. This photo here is just some more of the sanitation equipment that operates out of National. And parking operations is another one of the work groups that functions out of National. Similar to the slide for sanitation with the litter bins, all of these yellow dots are where the parking meters are located. So once again, you're going to see very dense in the north central part of the city, in downtown in particular. Again, for that reason, that is why parking operations is located out of National. This is just a reference slide for you guys. I think it's in your handout if you're just wondering where the specific functions of National are located in the yard. And the impacts to services. So this yellow area shows the services that would be impacted with the National Civic option. So it shows some impacted areas such as our sheds where we have fleet stored, as well as our salt bins. A lot of fleet would be impacted, as well as our stores area for pickup of materials, and our equipment services garage for servicing of our equipment. And then the red option would be the National and the National Charles option. So most impacted areas are looking to be our brine plant, our salt, some of the staff parking, and as well it's likely that our Deminda's coal yard would also be impacted. The thing I sort of want to mention about this though is that although these would be the impacted areas, these are not the only areas of the yard that would be impacted. The yard very much functions as a system, and if we're impacting one area, it's going to have impacts on the entire yard. And so just as an example, if I use the past few weeks that we've been doing our snow response, if we have a piece of equipment that has a malfunction or a problem, it would come into the yard, it would need to stop at EQS, Equipment Services. That garage operates 24/7 for us. We don't really have any time to allow the fleet to be down when we're responding to weather events. So they would repair the fleet, they would go, they'd pick up salt or brine, they turn around, they leave, they probably fuel up as they were leaving. And so that's kind of what I mean by it sort of operating as a system. And in terms of the mitigation plan, so I think the piece on here is that at this point there's really a lot of unknowns. So I can't go into a ton of detail, but no matter what areas are impacted, there will be a master study required for the planning of whatever changes need to take place. There's also some very rough, high-level estimates of cost. I believe that's for replacing like for like that are in here for the two options. National Charles, as well as the National Civic option, being much more expensive, of course, because it is the bigger impacted area. But something I really want to mention is there's very likely to be more than just these costs, because at this point we don't know, like I said, there are unknowns, and we don't know the impact to the yard as a whole. And so that's not actually reflected in this. This would just be the like for those impacted areas, but there's going to be more impacted than just those specific areas in that last slide. And as well, if there's any need to move any of our operations, if they have to move further out from the center of where they're located now, we're also looking at operational inefficiencies for more travel time, and that's something that would be an ongoing cost to us for all the work we do on an ongoing basis. So that's what I wanted to cover. I'm going to pass it on. I'm going to pass it on to you. Okay.
Thanks so much, you guys. So we'll have you back, Erin and Deminda, when we do the Q&A. Fire chiefs, if you want to come on up. So, and looks like there's just two of you. Which two? Great. Chris and Tyler. Let's see. So Tyler is he's early in his career. Oh no, early in his career, comma. Chief Warder. Yeah, no, it can't be if he's a fire chief. My apologies. Early in his career, Fire Chief Ward gained extensive experience with dispatching and emergency communications through his roles as a fire dispatcher and a uniformed resource officer. He also served in the suppression ranks as both a firefighter and acting lieutenant. He's held many different positions and represents Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services at the ECOM's Fire Service Committee and Next Generation Radio Program Committee. And Deputy Chief Chris Herbert has been a member of the Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services since 1997. He worked within the suppression ranks until 2014, so I guess we're talking about our regular firefighters. And his current responsibilities include the management of the operations division and operational initiatives and planning, oversees operations of training, specialized teams such as hazmat, and so on. He's also responsible for the operation of the recruitment and outreach. So thank you both for coming here today.
Thank you for having us here. I guess great to see you all again. You visited our site at Chest Street. So, Chris, I'm going to be presenting our slide. I think Chris is going to be here more so for question and answer since he runs the site. I'm more so here just to talk about the facilities because that's my role in the department. The current site, the Chest Street site, is our training site. It actually has all of our current training for our new recruits, all of our training for our skills maintenance, and then all of our new skills are taught at the site. We also do have other agencies, VPD, that come and use the site. We do CPR training for the public at the site as well. All of those training take resources from our fire halls, in-service fire hall, in-service staff, bring them down to our training grounds, and we put them into a secondary response. Secondary response for us is 4 heavy apparatus, which is our fire trucks with minimum 4 staff on them, plus our 2 medic vehicles, which is minimum 2 staff on them. So we bring them down. They are in secondary response, so they're not responding to calls initially, but because of the centralized location of Chest Street, it allows for, if there is a escalation of an incident or multiple incidents where there's more apparatus required, they can disperse from that site. So having a centrally located site for us allows us to have all of this training happen with staff that are on duty, which obviously is a huge savings for us. So there's all the different things are listed here, which I think you guys have. That's the burn tower. Burn tower is obviously flames coming out of it, there is smoke that come out of it, lots and lots and lots of noise happening at this site at all times, so having it in an industrial area is obviously important to not have neighbors that are going to complain about the amount of noise that's happening all the time. So then on the site as well is our HUSAR. So HUSAR is we run the HUSAR, which is the Heavy Urban Search and Rescue Team. They actually is made up by police, DC ambulance, engineers, doctors. So they actually use this site to have all of their equipment. So we have a warehouse on site that houses all of the equipment, all of the trucks that the equipment would get loaded on and taken to the airport and or respond out into other parts of BC or across Canada. So the site is currently, if they get deployed, we use the current site, one of the classroom turns into the rear link, which allows for plane tickets to get purchased, hotels to get booked, all of the necessities that when they show up at the site, they're taken care of. And the site is currently, so they get processed through Chest Street, they respond to the airport or get on the trucks and drive, and this site is used for their for processing as well. Again, this is sort of the layout of the site with all the different functions. There's a driving track, burn building, classrooms, storage, HUSAR warehouse, our drafting pit, which is here, and then we have all the different activities that we do. We have different props at all of these different sites. One of them being using the Jaws of Life for the penny cars, so heavy rescue. And then further down is the only pile, so it's the only structural collapse pile in BC. It was made up of, I think it was bridge materials and other building materials that when they were demolishing, we were lucky enough to have those things and place them properly with engineering. There's a bus embedded in it, there's cars and stuff embedded in it. So it's used for practicing for our tech team and for the heavy search and rescue team. So as you can see, this is our site here. Any of the national options do impact that site. They would affect all the services that are on that site. Michelle did mention earlier about number 1 fire hall, and the number 1 fire hall is here. What I can say is that we are redeveloping number 1 fire hall, and we're currently trying to decide, based on whatever path it goes down, which way the fire hall will spill out our fire trucks onto. Because obviously we want to have good access to downtown and to be able to go east as well. So fire hall 1, depending on whatever avenue is picked, could end up spilling out onto that main artery that goes into the downtown core. So it does get affected by which one our actual response from our fire hall 1 would be impacted. So this is, you can see the 2 different options, or the multiple options of national affect all the sites. And this is the pile, this confined space and trench rescue props at that site. Again, going back to all the driving track, obviously would be impacted, all the props would be impacted, the warehouse would be impacted, the current tower. It does say half the site, but either way, on either side, really effectively takes out all of our core buildings. And this is the cost of mitigation. Currently, if we would have to keep a training site in service, so there would be a long delay. If it was the national routes, that would have to have us move off that site. We would have to keep it up and running until we have somewhere else to go, or figure a way to do that temporarily. So, and there's the costs for doing that. That's it.
We'll be back in a few minutes for Director of Licensing and Community Standards at the City of Vancouver. She's served in public service for over 15 years in various leadership roles in health and municipal government. And she's an active volunteer in our community. And thank you very much for joining us.
Great, thanks. And if everyone's okay, I'll present from here so I have a meeting podium to work from. So thanks so much. So I'm here today to talk a bit about the work of animal services here in the City of Vancouver, and primarily the impact of the proposed Malkin.
Can you hold the mic closer?
Closer? Better.
Thank you.
Very close. Very close, thank you. Oh, that's much better. So primarily here to speak about the impact of the proposed Malkin arterial routes on the animal shelter specifically and on our service delivery. So Animal Services is responsible for all animal-related services within the city. That includes the sheltering of animals, facilitating adoptions, licensing of dogs, the reuniting of stray or lost animals with their owners, and also the education and enforcement work of our bylaw officers in the field. We're located at 1280 Raymer, and we were built in 1976, and it was primarily built to accommodate dogs, but we're seeing now that many of the animals that require our care have expanded to be birds, rats, hamsters, etc. The location is, all of the services I spoke to are located at the animal shelter, and we see anywhere up to 40 people visiting the shelter every day. So the intention of this map is to show how the location of where it currently is located is really important and how that helps us to deliver optimally on our services. So a few important proximities. One is the proximity to the downtown core. So more than 60% of our calls for service are within the neighboring areas like Strathcona, downtown, Mount Pleasant, Grandview Woodlands, and the darker the area, the more calls we see every year. Second, the proximity to the BC SPCA. They are about a 5-minute drive away. We work very closely with them. We care for dogs, they care for cats, for example, and we find we're often directing clients back and forth between the sites and working very closely with them. Another proximity of importance is Strathcona Park. So we have, and I'll talk more later, we have some space on site for dogs to have daily exercise, which is important to us as an important factor of animal welfare when they're in our care. But we have this large park across the street. Many of our volunteers take the dogs for regular walks in a dedicated off-leash area in that park. And finally, the shelter is located in industrial lands. And as was mentioned earlier, this is particularly important not only because it complies with current city zoning regulations, but also because there's a lot of nuisance created by our site with the barking dogs. So this is an overlay, I guess, to show the entire site, and I can talk a bit about what each of the pieces do and why they're important, because when we look at how the Malkin route impacts it, you'll see the specific areas that are impacted. So I'll point out a few. So number 2, the orange area, are the kennels themselves. There are 48 dedicated heated kennels that provide the dogs with the best possible space while they're with us. The dog runs are in number 4, the green areas. Again, these are the open areas for the dogs to exercise. We try to exercise all the dogs 3 to 5 times a day. While I mentioned earlier, volunteers may take the dogs to Strathcona Park. The importance of us having dedicated dog run space at the shelter is because we often have a number of dangerous dogs in our possession. These are dogs that may have been involved in a bite case with a human or another animal. And it's not safe for us to take these dogs to a park. This is an enclosed, safe space for the dog to still receive the daily exercise they need. Number 5 is a storage facility that stores a number of items from bedding, food, a number of items that we need to care for the animals. Number 7, 8, up at the top there, that's how the public and the employees access the site. So that's, there's a parking lot and that's the entry place. There is next to number 5, there's a back road that we use for accessing with dangerous dogs and with some of our staff. Also is an important entry point for our colleagues in engineering and sanitation services, who will come with any deceased animals that they find in their work, and we will store the animals there prior to a proper disposal. And finally, number 1 and 3. So 1 is the entrance, and then 3 is the administration building. And that's where, again, it's the hub for our animal services operation, has offices, has our call center, change rooms, facility, also cares for the non-dogs that we have in our possession. We can't have the dogs, or pardon me, have the other animals with the dogs. So they are in the administrative area. So this whole complex was constructed in 1976. It's undergone several renovations since then to accommodate the change in animals that we see come our way. And it doesn't currently meet the service delivery that we need. So we are currently exploring alternate service delivery models and doing some future space planning. So as noted, the greatest impact for us are the 2 Malkin routes, and I'll talk a little bit about the differences between the south central and then the north options. So the red area would be the impact of the Malkin south and central options, and then it's further amplified by the Malkin north option, which includes both the yellow and the red areas. So I'll talk through specifically what that means for the elements of our operation here. So first, the central and the south option. So the real impacts for us, first of all, the entry points. So there'd be no public access anymore as it's currently designed for public works staff and parking lot. So that would facilitate a need for redesign and reconfiguration that we would have the ability to access the site. Second, the storage building would be removed, and we need to find some alternate storage options on site. Third, the dog runs would be completely eliminated. And as I mentioned earlier, we have there's the park across the street. The way it's configured now, accessing the park would be difficult. And the dogs that are not safe to be in the park would not receive any sort of daily exercise. And finally, with this option and with the north option, the proximity to a busy arterial reduces the suitability of the site overall as an animal shelter, given the known negative impacts of vehicle traffic noise on animals. So with Malkin North, it triples basically the impact as far as a footprint impact on the site. And the additional area impacted now is the administration building. Would significantly remove a portion of the admin building and would require significant renovation, but likely a demolition of the administration building as well. So as far as mitigation strategy, so if the panel were to choose either of the Malkin realignment options, we would have to look at all options to reconfigure the animal services facilities on the existing site, or potentially to relocate to a new site. Rebuilding would require some creativity to accommodate the factors that would be impacted, like how would we access the park, how would we address the noise concerns. But the relocating would probably be the most feasible option. We'd have to factor in several considerations. One, how would we remain close to our clients? And that's, again, where most of our calls are coming from in that neighborhood. The SPCA proximity and the park would be the 3 factors that would be to be considered, and to find industrial land in the same neighborhood that would allow us to meet all of those needs. Second, for business continuity, we are a 24/7 operation, so to ensure that we would have the ability to maintain services at the existing site while the new option was developed and constructed. And finally, for emergency preparedness, this site actually plays a role in the city's resilient city strategy and is centrally located for that reason. In the event of an emergency or an earthquake, the site does have a role to play in providing support. So as noted earlier, it would, the shelter would need to be relocated to some industrial land nearby, and various steps would have to be taken, including acquiring land and developing a plan to rebuild. Initial estimates suggested it would be $25 million for both of those pieces, the land acquisition and the facility rebuild.
Our last speaker for this section is Jim DeHoop, and he's coming on over. Jim DeHoop is the manager of planning at the Vancouver School Board and is a registered professional planner. He holds a master's degrees in both public policy and education, did his undergraduate degree in urban and regional planning. Prior to joining the Vancouver School Board, Jim was managing director of social development with the City of Vancouver and also held very senior municipal roles in Kingston. So welcome, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know where my slides are.
This picture's right there. Might be yeah. And if you're comfortable to be on the stage, I think you can see each other, but that's your
All right. Thanks again, everyone, for having me. The major impact for the Vancouver School Board is, of course, the Grant Street connection onto Clark Drive. The VSB Workshop provides critical services to all the Vancouver public schools, 54,000 students, 110 schools, from K to grade 12, lots of specialized programs, international students, etc. We service both the city proper and the UBC area with schools throughout the area. The location of this workshop is very centrally located for us, and we understand, like the other speakers, there's really a shortage of industrial located land to do the range of services that we've outlined here, from dispatch for services to all the schools, carpentry, electrical, structural, sheet metal, welding, glazing, and other glasswork, drapery services for the schools, painting, lots of storage of school equipment and supplies. The program area is over 10,900 square meters. There's 300 staff at the center. And again, they're providing a support services to all the 110 schools where there are 6,000 teachers and other support staff. Sorry, I should identify too that, as you'll find out in a couple slides, the impact to this yard is quite significant. Not only because of the heritage, but the situation of the building at the proposed location, or the optional location, would possibly require relocation elsewhere at a minimum cost of $62 million. That's about the amount it would cost about 2 new elementary schools. Okay, there is a heritage value to the building as well. It was built some time ago, 1929, and it was built to as part of the amalgamation of Vancouver, Point Grey, South Vancouver, and the City of Vancouver, and to provide services to the UBC as well. It was designed by the board staff architect, Harry Apostle, the Apostle, they called him. He's probably long retired now. Provides services related to all the ongoing maintenance and outfitting of the city schools. This is the location of the work yard. To the north is a parking lot. So as you can see, the Grant at Clark location really does come up between two of the VSB properties. These are different views of the building. This one in particular is sort of facing south from the Grant Street location. You can see the vehicles is right at the property line. So there's definitely an impact if there's a major arterial coming through this location. And I, like probably many of you, when you look at this building, you don't see necessarily a lot of heritage, but the outward appearance kind of belies an inner kind of wonder. When I did the tour there, it's quite significant in terms of some of the heritage values. And again, these pictures don't really show it, but there's a lot of unique features in the design of the building. It is aging. It probably needs a reimagining and redesign internally, but it's a significant building for storage, all of the various services. And again, here the red shaded area shows the significantly impacted areas for the building. The two sites, the parking lot and the building itself. The areas shaded in yellow indicate access ways that are current, so those would be impacted. So it would likely require an alternate access via Vernon Drive if possible. And again, as the other speakers, we'd be required to work with the city on a master plan to look at any mitigations to determine if the site can be reconfigured at all. We don't know for sure. And further study on the impacts of the workshop, how they could be mitigated. And there you have it. That's my overview for VSP. Thank you.
Thank you. So Michelle's going to come back up and do a final presentation for us.
So as you have heard now from all my colleagues, how important all the facilities are to deliver services to the community for day-to-day needs, keeping all these businesses up and running, everything from keeping the schools working to our streets and roads, and making sure our firefighters are continually trained and able to still respond in the case of emergency, and how the part that all these facilities play in emergency preparedness for basic public safety in the case of any kind of event. So just quickly run through a summary of the effects of each arterial proposal. So again, the prior Venables has almost no effect other than what Tyler spoke about for Fire Hall 1, just understanding which way it's going to face. Same with the William option. And Malkin intersects with the Animal Services Center. And then National affects pretty much everybody else. So the scale of the impact, nothing for prior and Venables, William. Malkin, we have a moderate impact of between $15 and $25 million, depending on what kind of mitigation response we can look at. National has a very major impact. And these numbers, as was referred to before, are only numbers to replace like for like. Only the land that gets taken for the roads and the actual buildings that are intersected or disrupted. So it's only about replacing what currently exists without the additional costs that it would take to fully master plan and rebuild facilities that would make sense holistically. So this is the very base cost. So one of the key things that would be the issue for the city in looking at mitigating the effect of National in particular on these facilities is the land acquisition that would be required. So as each speaker has noted, and I showed at the beginning how key it is that they're centrally located, we would be looking at land assembly within the flats somewhere to be able to keep up the services to the level that we currently have. And that would be our number one priority, the service delivery and the efficiency of that is the best value for taxpayers. So we would be looking at assembling similar types of land in the flats, which would take a really long time to have land just come up for sale that's adjacent to each other. We're talking years and years and years to have that happen. If there was pressure to have that happen faster, we may have to look at expropriation, but that would be a very last resort. And then the other piece about facilities construction, again, as I said earlier, this was just to replace like for like, and the time to build the new facilities would take a long time as well, because we have to ensure that the service is uninterrupted. The existing facilities would have to remain operational until the new ones were ready to take on that service delivery. And then I just wanted to back up and place this in the context of our whole city portfolio. So this chart shows the age of all city-owned facilities. So this is community centers, pools, wakes, fire halls, libraries, everything that the city owns. And you'll see that that we have, there's a large number of buildings that were built in the 60s and 70s that would be about 40 to 50 years old. And we've spoken about animal services being the one that's getting older, and we're starting to think about renewal options for. But all the other ones were built in the 2000s and are actually very new facilities. At this time, we would not be renewing them. So if you think about the life cycle of a building, when, this is what my team does, we think about all our civic facilities and their age and when they need to be renewed and what it takes to do so. So the initial investment in building a building, that's the big upfront cost. And once a building's in operation, there's the day-to-day maintenance that is kind of a constant. And as the building ages, there are systems that need replacing. So at around 20 years old, you need to replace the roof or maybe a boiler. And when it gets to be about 40, 50 years old, you start thinking about, well, is this facility still really working for us? Or do we need to do some major replacements? So anything that was built post-1990 was built to current upgraded seismic codes. So anything that's younger than 1990, we anticipate at least, that these buildings should be able to live for us for another 50 to 75 years. So we would, this investment would be worth it rather than going back to replacing all of the whole facility. So these buildings are all pretty young. They're kind of in their childhood of their lives, and if we were to have to renew them sooner than we would normally anticipate renewing them, we're potentially bumping other facilities, like many community centers, other things that are, from the 60s and 70s that really need seismic upgrading and need full-on renewal. So that's something to consider. So then just to wrap it up, to remind everybody that these facilities are incredibly important for public safety and day-to-day life, and that their location in the flats is essential for being able to provide service quickly and efficiently to the densely populated and growing parts of the city.